The birth of psychology in the 1800s is the result of thousands of years of thinking. Historically, psychology began as a combination of philosophy and experimental physiology. It used the methodology of experimental physiology to answer the questions of philosophy. Philosophy asked the questions of what makes people behave the way they do, is there life after death, and how do you get meaning out of life? The focus was on logical arguments and internally consistent propositions. Experimental physiology was interested in measuring neurons, explaining how the brain works, and discovering the basic elements of memory, learning, and personality. It used laboratory equipment, experimental controls, and replication to gather data and form testable hypotheses. People have always had questions. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What makes people act the way they do? Is there life after death? What is the soul? People have found many ways to answer their questions. We have asked older, wiser sages for their wisdom. We've looked to our religious, moral, and cultural training for answers. We've explored on our own. All the approaches have given us help. All illuminate part of our ignorance, but none covers everything. Religion's scope is spiritual and ethical questions. It often relies on revelation as its prime method of discovering truth. Wisdom's scope of interest is on personal conduct and practical living. Wisdom literature and the advice of people more knowledgeable often emphasize the importance of insight. Philosophy prefers logic as its method. It tests internal consistencies and loves propositions and syllogisms. Science focuses on observable events. It relies on systematic observation and replication. Psychology steals from all these approaches. Clinical observations often heavily rely on practical wisdom. Yet some therapies emphasize the importance of personal insight. And some therapists are so adamant their approach is correct, their beliefs are more religion than logic. Researchers in psychology prefer to think of themselves as scientists. They regularly apply both logic and systematic observation to the problems they study. They may scorn the fluffy-headed thinking of the clinicians, but have been known to have a sudden burst of insight redirect their entire research enterprise. In fact, we use all of these paths to truth. Both as individuals and as disciplines, we use whatever tools seem best at the time. Truth is not the purview of one group. It's broader than the approaches trying to discover it. We are all out looking for truth, using every tool we can, following every path we know. In my own personal search for truth, I have used religion, wisdom, philosophy, and science. But most often I go back to my favorite approach to life, dumb luck. Psychology's favorite approach combines two of the 5 paths. It uses science and philosophy. Psych likes the techniques of science, particularly those of experimental physiology, and Psych seeks to answer the questions of philosophy. Although it now describes itself as the study of behavior, psychology began as the study of the psyche, the soul. It tries to find scientific explanations of why we act the way we do, how we are like others, and what makes us unique. Who am I, and what is the meaning to life? Are questions personality theories try to answer. Some theorists use computer modeling or mathematical formulas. Some use blotches of ink on cards. Some simply watch what people do. But the questions have long been asked. To make our search easier, we can benefit from the thinking and research of others. You don't have to start from scratch. We can look at some of the questions others have asked, the answers they have found, and the techniques they used.